guys, Comic Boom here to review Wonder Woman Earth 1, Volume 3, Grant Morrison's epic 3-volume. I've only got the first 2 volumes here. I read the third one digitally, but guys, I gotta tell you, I'm actually pleasantly surprised. This Grant Morrison wraps up his epic 3-volume Earth 1 Wonder Woman tale, and man, I can't believe no one's talking about this. I mean, I don't get it. I mean, I know it's man's world, but you don't like to read a comic book where there's different ways to subjugate men? Come on, this is good stuff. This is really good stuff. I mean, do you agree with Queen Desire that men maybe were better off to be pets? Pets for women? We're domesticated. We don't live long enough, but we're okay maybe to sleep with here and there. But, you know, women get attached to us and then we die because we die younger. We don't live very long. We're kind of useful to have around, but kind of useless in many ways. We like to indulge ourselves in our little hobbies, but in the end, we're just men. And, you know, we have a tendency to get a little bothersome, and we're still prone to anger. We get so upset all the time. Fortunately, we got the Amazons. And let me tell you something, Grant Morrison's Amazons are very much beholden to the Golden Age. If you guys ever read the first year of Wonder Woman, going back to when she first debuted in 1942. Read those first 10, 12 issues of Wonder Woman. That Golden Age Wonder Woman is what Grant Morrison is really focusing on in his 3-volume set. And again, I got pictures surrounding me here of what's going on in Volume 3. The first 2 volumes, it's a gorgeous volumes, man. Beautiful. DC's done a really good job with these the 3-volume set. Good God, just fantastic stuff. And I tell you what, Volume 2 ended with Wonder Woman defeating Dr. Psycho. And this Dr. Psycho was sort of like the massive pickup artist. And he sort of created a post-hypnotic suggestion by subduing Wonder Woman by wrapping the lasso, bounding her to her lasso. And he manipulated her somewhat. And also in Volume 2, Paula von Gunther, who you see right below my face here, Paula von Gunther was also controlled again through the old radio technology of the Nazis to basically leak to Maxwell Lord, who is really Ares, the location of Amazonia, which is Paradise Island. But they don't call it Paradise Island in this. It's Amazonia. And while Dr. Psycho is defeated, and he's taken away by Queen Desire to the world Aphrodite, where he's essentially domesticated and I guess punished. I gotta tell you, the way Amazon's punish men, I gotta admit, I'd like to be punished. I mean, if Wonder Woman came up to said to me, you must come to terms with someone else telling you what to do. If Wonder Woman wanted to tell me what to do, and she wanted to tie me up with her magic lasso, come on, guys. Who wouldn't want to be involved in times, Diana says, perhaps when you can admit to yourselves this is what you've always secretly craved, you may earn rewards, but only if you're good. I mean, Diana actually says that here. This is a very different Wonder Woman. This is Grant Morrison writing the Amazons and really doubling down and embracing a culture that was the original intention of the creator of Wonder Woman. And that's what makes this such a fascinating exploration into Grant Morrison's mind in interpreting Wonder Woman. One of the things that Grant Morrison did when he wrote Final Crisis for DC is that he gave Wonder Woman very short thrift. He sort of dismissed her. Wonder Woman was really more of an afterthought in Final Crisis, and Grant Morrison always had more ideas that he wanted to explore with Wonder Woman, and he finally did, and boy oh boy does he explore her in spades here. Wonder Woman was created by William Moulton Marston. Now, William Moulton Marston, I mean, he loved women. He thought the world would be better off a matriarchy. I mean, the guy lived with 2 women. He had a very sexual life. And he died young, but boy, he knew how to live. And he really, not only did he live his fantasy, but Wonder Woman was his fantasy. But he thought that all of us should submit to loving authority. That if mankind could just admit that we all secretly want to be told what to do, and if everyone's telling you what to do, then everyone is listening. Because in order to be told what to do and to actually do what you're told, you have to listen. If more people listen and submit to loving authority of each other, particularly women, the world's going to be a better place. And ultimately, that's the Amazonian tradition that Wonder Woman chooses. Because what Wonder Woman does in Volume 3, which is particularly fascinating, is that she's got to collect all the disparate groups of Amazons throughout essentially, well, the multiverse, really, because the Amazons have discovered the multiverse and they've been aware of it for well over 500 years, Wonder Woman says. And she wants to bring together all the Amazons to defeat Ares, who, as Maxwell Lord, is going to be attacking Amazonia. And that's the main threat here in Volume 3. And that's what makes it so compelling. And I'm going to get into the intricacies of this plot. But first thing I want to do is explain what Grant Morrison does here to great effect. He actually plays with timelines here. Grant Morrison starts off this tale talking about what it's like in the future. And in the future, we see a male terrorist group that essentially is rebelling against the matriarchy and is accusing the government of Harmonia, which is the future Amazonia, I guess, of what he calls institutionalized androphobia. Now, androphobia is a fear of men. And they have an Operation Hercules. And what they want to do is that they kidnap this Ardra Moore, who is the future leader of the Amazons, who has got a secret of her own that's revealed at the end of Volume 3. But it's in the future, some of the men still fear, because the problem with men is that we ultimately go back and we always become fearful creatures, not like women. We can never really seem to let it go and to just relax. And this terrorist organization is led by a man named Professor Garrett Manley. Of course, his last name is Manley. And his Operation Hercules, he's trying to rally support from the men in the future, saying, what did our forefathers do when they were sick and tired of being told what to do by women? They rained down havoc. This comic is great. It's such a joy to read. And look, it's obviously, if you don't have a sense of humor and you don't have a sense of imagination and fantasy, you can look at this and say it's politics. I guess it's politics, it's feminism, but it is loving submission, it's loving authority. Wonder Woman has got her Queen Desire, who thinks of men like pets. She's got Artemis, who is more aggressive and is inclined to kill men and wipe them out if necessary. And then she's got her own vision of dealing with humanity and dealing with men. And that is one of more loving submission and showing them the error of their ways and embracing them. And Wonder Woman's sexuality is on full display here. Her acceptance of everything. She shows compassion toward Paula von Gunther, the former War Master, who she releases Paula von Gunther from the bondage that she was in on Paradise Island, because Paula von Gunther proves herself and she achieves a kind of redemption. So Wonder Woman shows her forgiveness. Wonder Woman shows her love and compassion to Steve Trevor. And she also discovers, Steve Trevor helps her realize that she doesn't always have all the answers. So she learned something from a man in the comic, which is nice to see, because this isn't all misanthropy, or what's the word? Misandry, the opposite of misogyny. Misandry. Anyways. And of course, Artemis plants a nice big kiss on Wonder Woman. So for the Purian fanboys out there and fangirls, whatever floats your boat, there's something in this comic book for everyone, and I do encourage everyone to check it out. And Maxwell Lord here, Ares as Maxwell Lord, is fantastic. The ultimate war, he says, sex versus sex, bring the rain. And that's what he wants to do. And I'm going to get into to show off some of the pictures here, guys, because this is pretty good stuff. Now, the series, the volume starts off with the funeral of Queen Hippolyta, because she died at the end of Volume 2. She was killed at the hands of Paula von Gunther. And Paula von Gunther is, of course, she's forgiven, but she also must pay a price, and she's got to wear a girdle, and she's got to go through the rehabilitation that is on Paradise Island. And the Amazons have many ways to try to correct one's thinking. And again, this is very touchy stuff. And if you really get into the meat and potatoes of this, a lot of the disturbing things, like if Like even the way they deal with Dr. Psycho here, they almost like force him into loving submission. And even though they say it's not force, they provide clarity of your mind so you can see the truth of things. There's some disturbing elements to it that I think there's a right amount of disturbing elements to some of the concepts that the Amazons are engaging in that make this story so compelling. And that's what makes it, I think that's what made it interesting to Grant Morrison. And it really makes for a very interesting story because we know from the beginning of the story, because the beginning of the story takes place in the future, we know that the future is essentially a matriarchal utopia where matriarchy governs. And in the meanwhile, so we know that that's how the world ends up. So we know that ultimately Wonder Woman and the Amazons will defeat Ares and defeat mankind and essentially hearken in this new matriarchal utopia. But how we get there is sort of the point of the story, and that's what makes up Volume 3. And I think it's a blast myself. I got to tell you, if ever men are going to lose a war, let's lose a war to the Amazons, because they're not going to kill you. I mean, they'll kill you while you're fighting them, but if you lose and you surrender, all you got to do is submit to loving authority. And if I got to be treated like a pet by gorgeous women throughout the multiverse, I can think of worse fates. I really can. And if we all get along, I don't know how we lose here. This is a win-win situation. I don't get it. But anyways, I think this is fantastic. I really enjoyed this story. I had a blast reading it. I read it again about four or five times. I had a lot of fun. I definitely encourage you guys to pick this up. Now, I want to read to you a quote here exactly. It's on the page here. It's from Queen Desira. You know, Wonder Woman sent Dr. Psycho to her aunt Desira, Queen Desira of planet Aphrodite, to basically try to rehabilitate Dr. Psycho. And her comments about men are very interesting. She says, "Here, as you've seen, our men are subdued and pampered creatures, domesticated, content with their privileged lives, their all-consuming hobbies." It's like, sounds a lot like me. Yeah, my hobby is comic books. Okay. Ideal for labor, company, and rough pleasure, though often not much else. Definitely sounds like me. And they die so quickly. It's heartbreaking when you become attached to one. Yes. Oh my God. I don't know how you cannot enjoy reading this. I mean, you got to have a sense of humor about your gender, gentlemen, when you read this, but I think this is a lot of fun to read. It's definitely worth checking out. Now, the first act of this volume 3 of this final act, so to speak, is the first act of this final story. Wonder Woman is recruiting other Amazons, and here she recruits Artemis, and they go through some sort of ritual, a fighting ritual. Wonder Woman handily defeats Artemis, and then meanwhile we get this General Lartel. He's talking with Steve Trevor. Now, Steve Trevor, at the end of Volume 2, was arrested by the U.S. government because while Wonder Woman defeated Dr. Psycho, she did so through the help of Steve Trevor, but they also become enemies of the U.S. government because Maxwell Lord has essentially control of the presidency, and so the Amazons were deemed to have attacked the White House, and so Volume 2 ended with us knowing that war with Ares and war with Man's World was well on its way. And that's what makes this Volume 3 kind of exciting, because now this is the Amazons taking on Man's World, taking on the forces of the United States. But there are forces within the U.S. government that are sympathetic and in fact want to side with the Amazons, in particular this General Liddell and of course Steve Trevor, who is being held prisoner. Meanwhile, Maxwell Lord himself has got his Ares Mark 1 and Mark 2 projects, which are essentially robots that he's going to use to attack Paradise Island. One of the strategic advantages that Maxwell Lord, that Ares has here against the Amazons, that Wonder Woman discovers too late, is that the Amazons are expecting to fight men in battle, not robots. They know how to defeat men because they've always battled against men, and the tyrannies of man's world. And so they know how to defeat men. They know how to get into our minds. They know how to subdue us. They know how to subject us to loving submission. All their machines can control the minds of men in many ways and manipulate us, etc., etc. But not if they battle a machine. And Ares / Maxwell Lord, he's aware of this. And that's part of the battle plan as he plans and strategizes against the Amazons. And here it is, all these robots that he's sending to paradise, and he's saying, let it rain. Let's get this war on the show. Ares is 3,000 years ago, the Amazons defeated Ares, and he's never really forgotten it. And as Maxwell Lord himself says here, / Ares, he goes, what is time to a god? He's got all the time in the world to exact his revenge on the Amazons, and that's exactly what he did here in this epic volume. Art here is fantastic. Yanick, Paquette, my God, fantastic. Nathan Fairborn on the colors. These just pop off the page. Absolutely beautiful. And Maxwell Lord makes it clear to the generals here. And he's got 3 underlings under him, Maxwell Lord or / Ares. And these are all characters that Grant Morrison takes right out of the golden age of Wonder Woman. In particular, Wonder Woman number 2, Golden Age Wonder Woman number 2, and that is Mr. Earl, Dr. Duke, and General Conquest, which are, think of the Duke of Deception. These are characters that are analogous to the Duke of Deception and the Count of Conquest, aka Lord Conquest from Wonder Woman number 2. So we got Mr. Earl, Mr. Duke, Dr. Duke, and General Conquest that are the underlings of Ares. They're used to, they don't really play much of an active role here. They're just Ares underlings. They don't really seem to do much. And I think that's deliberate on the part of Grant Morrison. But in any event, they uses the robots attack to attack Amazonia. And after 1,000 years, men are still crazy. And this whole world now is called, will eventually be transformed into and be referred to as Gaia. And Amazonia will become Harmonia, which will be sort of the capital of Gaia, capital of our world. But that will take thousands of years in the future. So what's happening is we got 2 adventures taking place simultaneously that are juxtaposed against each other as this 3-act story progresses in Volume 3. We've got Great Adventure, this terrorist attack by these male terrorists trying to save the world from female tyranny in the future. from what the hell is it called again? Androtopia, the fear of men, misogyny versus misandry. Good grief. Institutionalized androphobia. We have to save the planet from this. Future terrorists kidnapping Audra Moore, the leader of the Amazons in the future. Meanwhile, in the present here, it's the Amazons fighting for their lives against the tyranny of men on Earth. And fortunately, Wonder Woman is prepared for this. And what she does is, again, she unites all the Amazons. And as she's uniting all these Amazons, of course, Amazonia is being attacked. And again, it's Amazonia in this series. It's not called Paradise Island. It's not called Themyscira. It's Amazonia, or Amazon Island. It was also referred to as. And again, we're going back and forth between the future where these male politicians in the future are desperately trying for their, here's Professor Garrett Manley trying to gain support for the men party. And all these men, he's saying, listen to us, learn from their courage, lads, reject the pressure to conform to the Greek statue realm. Because, a lot of men in the future, they're overweight, they're too skinny. So basically, he's flipping the gender roles. In the future, it's men that have the same struggles that women have now. And that's interesting. And so just like nowadays we have women that are fighting for rights and we have feminist movements. In the future, in the matriarchy, it's the opposite. We got extreme men's groups fighting for a say and fighting for a greater say in society. And of course, this very much has a matriarchal bias to it, that a matriarchy is best for humanity, and that if you're a man and you want to fight against the matriarchy, then of course you need to have your mind corrected. You need to submit to loving submission because something's clearly wrong with you, and there are gender laws that are enforced as well, and you can't show violence when you can't show violence against the other gender. In any event, goes back. There's a lot of great fight scenes here. Yanick Paquette does a fantastic job drawing the battle sequences here, the deaths and the lives of these Amazons. Jumpa, the kangaroo, is used to probably the best effect I've seen in quite a while. What Wonder Woman, Diana's writing that. Artemis is a fantastic fighter. And they're fighting these machines, fighting these Ares robots, and just beautiful sequences that just pop off the page. I say pop off the page. I haven't got my volume yet, but I mean, I tell you, I got this digitally as well. It's fantastic. Just pops off the computer screen. And Wonder Woman realizes that if they're going to defeat Ares / Maxwell Lord, they're going to have to come up with another plan here. And now what they've done is when they attack and when they incapacitate the first wave by Maxwell Lord is defeated by the Amazons, just barely, and they realize that these robots are essentially radio controlled and their technology is very primitive. And the Amazons, of course, have a lot of advanced telemetry, advanced technology, so they can figure it out. Meanwhile, Wonder Woman goes into Hades. She enters Hades because she wants to find and try to talk to her mother, and because she's got some plan to bring her mother back. Meanwhile, she forgives Paula von Gunther, who has earned her place, who fights valiantly alongside the Amazons, defeating the first wave attack by Ares. And Wonder Woman enters Hades, again, beautifully drawn. The colors here by Nathan Fairborn, fantastic. As Wonder Woman enters Hades, and you can see Grant Morrison's almost Grant Morrison almost displays a kind of, at a minimum, he displays a resentment toward the old gods, almost a contempt. He makes the old male, the patriarchy, look really bad, or looks rather kind of pathetic. Because as they enter Hades, all the old rich and the Greek cultural lifestyle of the previous age of gods is on full display in Hades, where as Wonder Woman says, so strange and silent and silver, see where the river Leith gathers in pools of liquid amnesia. And the same gestures repeated, the same brief snatches of conversation, the same old man on the same old bench as she approaches and talks to the gods. And again, throughout this, as much as it's uplifting in parts about it's uplifting for both sexes, there are parts of this narrative that are going to probably ruffle some feathers, because it's definitely Grant Morrison taking some pot shots at men. And clearly Wonder Woman has a bias. I would suggest she's got a bias against men, but she's got so much compassion and forgiveness and willing to embrace this idea of loving submission. She's willing to submit to them and extend an olive branch to them, but again, as long as we behave, as long as we're good, and as long as we don't do violent things, which is all well and good, but it crosses into some uncomfortable territory, and mileage will vary as to how uncomfortable one would be reading this, but I would suggest that you're going to be entertained regardless. And in any event, Wonder Woman goes to try to find her mother, and the message that she gets from her mother is basically, and she ends up being drowned almost taken over by, I guess, a demon in Hades. And by the time she finds her mother, she doesn't get a lot out of her mother. Her mother just essentially tells her, and I guess I don't have it here, or I might have it, but essentially her mother tells her to, embrace the truth. And now what exactly does that mean? Wonder Woman's going to piece that together later on. Hippolyta, we know, is dead. Now, Hippolyta, when they burned Hippolyta, they cremated her, and the only thing that still burns is her heart. Hippolyta's heart is still burning. And Hippolyta's heart is sort of the symbol throughout the story, the power of the Amazons, because Hippolyta's heart remains burning in the same spot where Diana was born of clay. And that becomes symbolic at the end of this story when Hippolyta herself becomes reborn, because Diana essentially rebirths her mother. There's the cycle of life and death here that plays out beautifully, because as this plays out, as Steve Trevor rescues Wonder Woman from Hades, from being a captive in her own mental hell, he reminds her that you do need help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And Wonder Woman realizes that, I guess men aren't completely useless after all. Meanwhile, there's a second wave that's hitting, and Wonder Woman, they get into the thick of the battle, and Ares/Maxwell Lord is arrogantly thinking he can defeat Wonder Woman handily. And meanwhile, this flashes forward to the future where these male terrorists, of course, are defeated handily by this Ardra Moore. And what becomes clear here is Wonder Woman, in defeating Ares, she's basically telling the world that you're going to have to get used to somebody else telling you what to do, and that you're probably better off. I mean, it's right there. You must come to terms with someone else telling you what to do. I mean, this is benevolent dictatorship in many ways. It's like, just get used to me telling you what to do and be good, and everything's going to be fine. Submit to loving authority. Everything's going to be fine. Nothing to see here. By the way, we're taking over the world. We're Amazons. We're women. We're better than you are. You're men. Give it a rest. We're taking over. Thanks for coming out. I'm definitely oversimplifying it, but that's kind of it in a crazy kind of way. Guys, there is so much to mine here in this, story, in this 3-volume set. You could have a university course getting into the minutia of the philosophies here. I'm not doing it justice. I apologize, I'm not doing it justice, but I do encourage you to read it, because you could have fun just surface level reading this and get a good laugh out of it. And you could also have a lot of fun getting really deep into the weeds like I did. I had a little bit of fun. I've also thought and reflected on it. I thought this was a lot of fun. And again, only if you're good. You may earn rewards, but only if you're good. In time, perhaps, when you can admit to yourselves that this is what all you've always secretly craved. Have we secretly craved to be told what to do? Tied up? Only if we're good, though. Man, I tell you what, Wonder Woman, come to my universe and have a conversation with me. I'll be as defiant as necessary in order to get tied up, and hey, then after that I'll be lovingly submitted to whatever the hell you want to do. And while you're at it, bring Artemis with you. Even Paula von Gunther. I don't mind that. The redhead, the blonde, and the brunette. Can you imagine? That's what I call very easy loving submission, gentlemen. And ladies, hey, whatever floats your boat, right? Good God. And Paradise Island, Amazonia here is beautifully drawn by Yanick Paquette. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's you can see the technology here. The Amazons in this story have been deliberately, intentionally holding off their technology from the rest of the planet. And of course, the United States government is highly resentful of that. It's like they're saying, you had the power to heal, you had the power to do all this, and you've not shared it with the rest of us. And Wonder Woman literally laughs. She actually laughs. Grant Morrison had her laugh. She basically scoffed it off and basically said, of course we're not sharing it with you. You're not ready. Why would we do that? You can't even govern yourselves. You're filled with fear. You're making war all the time. You don't know how to be responsibly govern your own conduct. Why would we share technology with you that even if you comprehend, you're not responsible enough to use? In other words, we're treating you like the children you're behaving like, men. And this is directed largely toward men. And that's just the harsh reality. And man, it comes across to great effect. And now, what Grant Morrison does so well here is, because you're thinking, as I'm reading this, I'm thinking to myself, how arrogant of Grant Morrison to think that a world run by women is going to be any better than a world run by men. Why would you think that? How dare you? How dare you offend me? I'm not really offended, but you get my point, right? Well, what he does is that he says, well, wait a minute. He jumps ahead 1,000 years, essentially. I don't know if it's clear exactly how long. And he says, okay, now this is the world. He tells a story of the future. And in the future, there are men that want to rebel against the matriarchy. And the way that the future Wonder Woman and the way that the future characters and Amazons and women and society, men and women, deal with male terrorists is with compassion. Join us in love. You've always known the truth. Only love can save the world. So that even in the future, women are always showing compassion toward men. And so it's showing Wonder Woman's ultimate victory, because one of the other ways to deal with men that Wonder Woman rejected was the way that her Aunt Desira, Hippolyta's sister, treating them like pets. And Wonder Woman even negotiated at the end with Queen Desira, her aunt, to get Dr. Psycho back into Wonder Woman's care so that she could use her different ways of trying to rehabilitate men, to use those techniques on Dr. Psycho instead of the techniques, the more aggressively, lovingly, submittingly techniques used by Queen Desire. Kind of crazy stuff here, but Wonder Woman has a very specific way that she wants to approach man's world to seek to reach them and to rehabilitate them. And it involves love. Ultimately, love. Join us in love. Only love can save the world. That was the message that her mother gave her in Hades when in Hades, it's only echoes of what her mother was saying that she could pick up on. But one of the messages of the story is that even an echo can provide wisdom, but you have to listen. And that's some part of the beauty of the narrative here. I really enjoyed this. This is something, guys, that I would suggest that if you guys read this, take the time to read it. You can give it a surface level read and still enjoy it, but you can get a lot more out of it if you get right into the thick of the weeds. And at the end, it's revealed that this Artemis, who is in fact kidnapped, the leader, is in fact Diana herself, Wonder Woman. And in the future, Steve Trevor looks a little bit ridiculous. He's got a US on his thing. I'm not even sure why, but he seems to be some sort of an officer who deals with people. Encouraging gender disharmony is apparently illegal. You cannot encourage gender disharmony in the future. Because God forbid, don't argue with a woman in the future. And if you're a woman, don't argue with a man. Although if you were going to be a gender arguing with another gender, you're probably recommended that you're a woman arguing with a man, because I have a feeling, it being a matriarchy, the things are flipped. But in any event, we get to the end. Wonder Woman creates uses some clay, utilizes Hippolyta's burning heart, and she basically gives birth. And Hippolyta is essentially, I think, reborn. And so that cycle of life and death begins anew again. And I think you have to wonder if who is the future leader of the Amazons. Is that actually Hippolyta, the reborn Hippolyta, or in any event, there's some congruence there between the future and the past in the story, and it works very well. There, at the end of the story, Yanick Paquette shows off some of his processes, his art. The volume is really great. Some of the great quotes. Thank you, Artemis, for sparing our balls. Thank you, Artemis agrees with Wonder Woman that she's convinced by Wonder Woman that in the name of pity, then we'll spare these good men one and all. We'll let them live with their little lives. Don't presume we'll spare their balls. Queen Diana. Thank you, Artemis, for sparing our balls. Also, thank you for using denial of sex as a weapon, because that always works so well. Wonder Woman actually asks at one point in this volume, in this story, to ask the women of Earth to deny sex to men so that they get the message. And she references the story and the legend of Lysistrata. And Lysistrata is the story where it's a Greek story involving a bunch of women convincing men, turning men to their way of thinking by denying them sex. And can you imagine that worked? And in any event, it's actually quite a funny scene in the story. At one point, Maxwell Lord even says, Wonder Woman makes this go live on the internet. And Maxwell Lord, we stopped that, right? Tell me that shit's not trending. And of course, his three idiot underlings, they're saying, yeah, Mr. Earl, Mr. Duke, and General Conquest, they weren't able to stop it going online. But in any event, thank you for the reminder that only love can save the world. Great reminder in the story. Thank you for the reminder that men have nothing women need except sperm. That really is it. Hippolyta's eternal heart was preserved by Wonder Woman, and their Amazons communicate with each other through instant electronic empathic communication on Amazonian, and they made all of their technology without men and without war, and that men have nothing that they need. And they have come to man's world to liberate our sisters from the tyranny and cruelty. Sisters, we open our doors to you. This is what's interesting about the comic, is that this is the type of dialogue that you get from Diana throughout most of the narrative. But then at parts, she'll speak more objectively and with a greater sense of equality toward the men. But there's always an inherent sense that men are the problem. The only two men that really seem to be given good light here are Steve Trevor and General Liddell. General Liddell is an older general of man's world. He's certainly accustomed to war. So is Steve Trevor. But they are on the side of the Amazons. But really, other than them, even the men of the future are really kind of drawn in in a much more dilapidated and pathetic kind of way. I have to openly wonder, I know that Grant Morrison has come out and he's non-binary, so I guess he doesn't identify as male or female, I guess. And I wonder if the fact that Grant Morrison is non-binary, I wonder to what impact that his own personal circumstances had an impact on him writing the story, because he really does blur the lines between male and female, because a lot of the men in the future look very effeminate, and there's the blurred lines between male and female, particularly in the future, is drawn by Yanick Paquette. It's interesting. Something to ponder. Again, it's a very fascinating read. I encourage people to read it. Thank you, Diana, for showing us mercy. Yes, finish them with mercy. That's how they kicked our ass in the war, and she finished us with mercy. And then loving submission. There are worse fates, gentlemen. And, of course, thank you, Maxwell Lord, for Sex versus Sex. Thank you, Betcha. Thank you, Diana, for forgiveness and atonement. She forgives Paula von Gunther, the War Master. And Paula von Gunther was, of course, the arch villain that was ultimately defeated in Wonder Woman Earth 1 Volume 2. And she betrayed the Amazons even after she was initially reformed. She was then reinstigated, or her mind was taken over again by Man's World, by Ares. And so she betrayed the Amazons, but still Wonder Woman manages to forgive her. Thank you, Diana, for making men feel worthless. Yes, well, we've already done that. And I couldn't help but I had to put Jane Foster on there. Flippin' the bird. There you go. Okay, thank you, Steve, for reminding Diana that she can make mistakes that occurred. That was needed in this. The men got, you could argue that men got some serious short thrift in this, but at the same time, this is a story about female empowerment and the matriarchy. And quite frankly, I think that every now and then, this gives us men a nice polite reminder that women are pretty cool and extraordinary too. I wasn't offended by it. I was thoroughly entertained. And I think most guys would too. At a minimum, you'll be entertained. Thank the matriarchy for eliminating all access to guns and weapons. Yes, I didn't mention that in the future there are no weapons. In fact, part of the complaints of the male terrorists in the future is that they couldn't in fact build a bomb because there's no place that they could go to buy the parts to build a bomb, because there are no things that you can buy to make weapons in the future. Why? Because it's a matriarchy, stupid. So there you go. Thanks for the info. The magic lasso can compel in any language, even computer code. That's right, people. And I thought this was an interesting, a cute little, a good bit of Easter egg by Grant Morrison. He has the magic lasso being able to communicate with a computer and to compel not only a living being to tell the truth and to follow instructions and submit to authority. But even a computer code is a language, and since the magic lasso can communicate in any language, it can also have an impact on computer code. So I thought that's a nice addition, and to my knowledge, that's something that has not even been explored with Wonder Woman's magic lasso in the mainstream universe, so I'd really like to see that become part of mainstream Wonder Woman storytelling. Thanks for the info. Do not provoke women, especially the Amazons. You bet. Yes. Where is Maxwell Lord? They say. Why did we provoke these women? One of my favorite lines in the entire comic. Why did we provoke these women? It's like we had an entire planet of people we could have went to war with, but no, we had to pick the Amazons. I mean, we've been warring for thousands of years. Why did we have to go to war against the Amazons? I mean, really. But it is what it is, and you made your bed, Ares, and now you got to lie in it. You waited 3,000 years for revenge, and now you've gotten your asses kicked. Well, there you go. Thanks for coming out, and now you got to submit. And but that's all right. You get tied up, and as long as you behave, and as long as you're good, you might even end up with a smile on your face. But guys, I enjoyed this. Admit you want to be told what to do and submit to loving authority. Boom. There you go. How many of these do I have? Admit you want to be told what to do. Yes, absolutely. And thanks for from death comes rebirth, renewal, and hope. Yes, that's it. Good stuff here, people. Good stuff. And finally, what did you expect? I had to end with this. Why? Why not? I figured that since Grant Morrison is going to subject us to a future where all the men are completely emasculated and submit to loving authority, it's only appropriate that I embrace the present and submit myself to femininity in all its glory. Huh? Look at this. This is stuff. What did you expect? With, of course, Superman picking his nose, I got to take at least one pot shot against the ultimate Superman, huh? It is what it is. So, guys, this is, I gotta say, overall, I really enjoyed this. I really would be curious to know if any of you guys have read this. I encourage you to read it. If you can, I mean, leave a comment below. Tell me what you think of Grant Morrison's 3-volume story here. I really do encourage you guys to pick it up. It was a lot of, it's beautiful to read. It's so rare to find a story that, I got the first 2 volumes here in front of me, but I can't wait to pick up the 3rd volume at my comic shop. I haven't done that yet, but I've reviewed it digitally. This is a gorgeous set. If this ever comes out as one collected hardcover, I'm going to pick it up. I got to give my highest compliments to Grant Morrison because, look, I don't agree with every approach or interpretation of Wonder Woman that Grant Morrison takes here. But Grant Morrison has read the Golden Age Wonder Woman, and there are Easter eggs there I haven't even touched upon because I don't have time. This video's already got to be 45 minutes. And there's so much there to mine. This is such a beautiful tale, a beautiful 3-volume set. I highly encourage people to pick it up. I think it's hey, man, it's comic books. It's good stuff. Guys, tell me what you think of Wonder Woman Earth 1 Volume 3. Hit the subscribe button. Follow me on Twitter at Metropolis40. And until next time, Comic Boom out.